I do understand that Webpack is complicated for a beginner, because if it would be so much easier, all these SPAs would be giving you instruction to configure the Webpack rather giving you a starter project. But it's not that much complicated if you actually focus on just learning the Webpack and leave all the other building the stuff and everything rest of the things out of the box. So in this video, we're going to focus just on the Webpack. We'll understand what problem it is solving, and we'll have a small code walkthrough so that you can configure and can manipulate all the Webpack configuration in case you need that. Hey there everyone, Hitesh here, and in this video we're going to talk about Webpack. This video is going to be a little bit longer. It's sort of a crash course, or you can say Webpack 101, where we're going to discuss what Webpack is, and we're also going to code a little bit onto the Webpack configuration. I'll explain you what are these loaders, plugins, when to need them, how to read the documentation of them, and a little bit more onto that. So buckle up, it's going to be a little bit longer ride. The most common problem with the Webpack is that when somebody tries to explain the Webpack, either there is already a pre-built written gigantic code that he's trying to explain, or somebody is trying to explain Webpack while building some application. And we can avoid both of them. We can just focus on Webpack, and all we're going to use in this tutorial is just an array and a console log. Not even processing anything on the array. No insert, no delete, just an hard-coded array and just a console log, and you will understand thoroughly what Webpack is. So first and foremost, what is the problem that Webpack is trying to solve? I can give you a great example, and I'm pretty sure many of you can relate with that if you're not that old. In the early days, when there was an Ajax, in case you remember that library, it was a very famous library. There was a common error which all of us have faced, that all the time, whenever you want to use Ajax in your custom coded script that you have written, you first need to call the Ajax, and then after that in the second line, we include the script where we have written our custom code. And many times, accidentally, we have called our script first and then loaded the Ajax script after that. And we have all faced those errors that, hey, Ajax was not able to find. And after a whole lot of headache, we realized, that was a really simple fix. We just need to call Ajax first and then our custom coded script. So there are always dependencies in our JavaScript that first need to be loaded up, and then there is a hierarchy which we need to follow in case we are working with JavaScript. So I hope you can relate me with that example, and moving on to that example. Now imagine if you have 5 different scripts that need to be loaded up in the particular order. Now imagine 100. Now imagine 500 files. And yes, I can see that look on your face. And also, in case you are loading up your custom style sheets into the JavaScript and your SVG files and custom JSX, syntax, and handlebars, then it's another nightmare. So there should be a solution of how to load up these files, and there should be an easier way to fix this. And here comes Webpack. Webpack allows you to just modularize your code as much as you want and as the way you like it to be. And finally, Webpack allows you to just push all of the code into one single file, and that file is going to do everything. I don't have to worry about when should I load this module first or second place or at a 15th place. I don't take care of that. I also don't worry too much about the import statement or writing the stuff in the modern JavaScript or the old JavaScript. I don't care about anything of that at all. Webpack takes care of everything for me. Does it take care of everything magically for me? Most of the things, yes, but I do get a config file in which I can mention that how things should be sorted up, and I can just be relaxed after that. Whenever you are learning the Webpack, you're also going to see that apart from input file and an output directory, you also need to have knowledge about plugins and loaders. But I'm not going to give you that right at this moment, because these things should actually flow just like a waterfall, and you'll automatically understand that why we need loaders and plugins in that. So rather than discussing up them here, let's discuss them on my computer screen. So finally, let's move on to the code part, and I highly recommend to walk along with me in this tutorial. You're going to have so much fun, and by the end, you'll be almost done with the Webpack. Okay, so let's get started with the Webpack. And of course, the first thing is to move on to the webpackjs.org, the official website. Always a good resource to learn more about the docs, and we'll be doing that later on. I'll leave you there. So as you can see, all of the JavaScript files and PNGs and JPEGs and handlebars are all going into Webpack, and they are just being created into one single JS file, one single CSS. This is a little bit more on the static asset, so not to bother too much on that. So how do we get started with that? The first thing that we are going to need is our friendly VS Code, and I have created a directory called Webpack. And in this Webpack, let's bring it up here. I'm going to go ahead and create a new file, 01. And I'm going to just go ahead and drag and drop this one up into my VS Code. We don't need this anymore, so that is good. And now let's use the full real estate of the screen. So this should be okay. And this should be all good. Okay. So now that we have this, now apart from VS Code, we're going to need Node.js. So I guess that is already installed onto your system. And in case Node.js is not installed, why are you watching this video first? You should be watching my JavaScript series first and then come back here probably later on someday. Anyways, expecting that you have got already this installed, the first thing is to just initialize a node project. So we're going to simply say npm init to initialize it. I'm going to pass on a -y variable to not answer them one by one, and everything is being answered. So this creates a simple package.json file for us, and we can see that it's pretty nice and easy, nothing too much to discuss on that. Okay, so we want to configure a Webpack. What do we need? The first thing that we are going to need is to install Webpack. But alone Webpack it can work, but it's going to give you a whole lot of issues that you'll be struggling around onto the Stack Overflow quite a lot. So it is recommended that you also install a Webpack CLI. And they usually go into the dev dependencies because these are just used for development. When they go into production, they just are single page applications. So one JavaScript file. So let's go ahead and add this one. And of course, I'm going to fast forward all these installation because nobody wants to watch a bar just filling up. So this is all we got. Okay, what is the first thing that we need to do when we are configuring our Webpack? So in the project root directory, wherever the package.json and other basic files are, you want to create a new file here. And the name of the file is pretty simple. We just call it as webpack.config.js. And yes, in theory, you can change the file name as well, but you have to deal up with a lot of things. So don't do that. And what is expected from you is to have this module.exports in that. This is just an object. And if you just ask me, in theory, this is all what you need to get started with Webpack, but this is not going to serve any purpose at all. So the first thing that Webpack needs, there is a lot of key value pairs that you need to add up here. Things like what should be the entry point of my project? Where should I throw up all the things after combining them together? Is it a production mode? Is it a dev mode? All the things that you can actually give to that. So let's start with the basic one. There is a first thing that we have to add is an entry. Again, key value pair. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I will have an app directory, and inside that I'll have an index.js, which is going to be my main file or an entry point of all that. Now you don't need to say all the time ./app or index.js. You can just say that, hey, everything is going to be thrown right into index.js or app.js, whatever that is, you get the idea. This is the first thing that we have to do. And that's basically mentioning your entry point. We're going to come on to the output file as well, but there are going to be a couple of things that usually somebody is going to ask you that onto the part. Okay, so let's move up here and let's see what else you are going to do. So let's just say your project is going to need some of the styling. So style sheets are going to be there. You're also going to need some SVGs to be included, very common thing, and a little bit more to that. So let's start one by one. So in here, I'm going to say that is there any SVG package for that? And I'm going to give you a little bit cheat sheet here. So this one is known as SVG inline loader. Come on, there we go. The first one, SVG inline loader. So I don't know how to use this one, so I'm going to go ahead and refer the docs of that. So the doc says, first you need to say npm install svg inline loader, and then we have to say save as dev. Okay, no big deal. We can go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and switch on to this one, clean my screen so that you can see it, paste it up here, and let's install this. Okay, so this is perfectly installed, but obviously it needs a configuration as well. So let's go up here and see that how we can configure it. Now, this is the point where the documentation can be a little bit kind of deceiving. So we can see that there is an object, and in the object we see the test, and we see that the loader is SVG inline loader. Now this SVG loader is not telling you exactly where to put this. This simply says that, hey, simply add configuration to object module.loader and just do this. I'm going to tell you where you can find the better documentation of this, but in the meantime, we are going to just copy this and I'm going to do it for you and will tell you. So whenever there are new things or extra things which are required in the Webpack to be done, these are just basic things like loading style sheets or loading SVGs. These are known as loaders in the Webpack. And there are two things you're going to see, the loaders and the plugins as well. Or I thought I should actually explain it first. So first, loaders. The job of the loaders is to simply work into the things while things are getting loaded. So before that final one single output.js is being created, whatever the configuration you need to do before that, like loading CSS and SVG, that is being done into the loaders. And whatever the more configuration you need to do after that, the final output.js is being created, that all is done in the plugins. Again, no need to bother too much of that, but I'm going to tell you all of that. Okay, so first, entry point is being done. Then we go ahead and simply say that we are going to have a module. This module is an object, and inside that we have some rules. So what are these rules? These rules are actually an array, and this array consists of a whole lot of objects. The first object we're going to paste up is this one. This simply says that, hey, whenever you see any SVG, since JavaScript cannot load SVGs directly, we are going to use somebody else's written code on a module known as SVG inline loader. And that's all you have to do. You can just simply go ahead and just save it and all done. So now you can actually directly say import SVG from blah, blah, blah SVG, and you'll be all done here. Now, you also want to include the style sheets into your JavaScript. So how we're going to do that? Let's go ahead and find something for that as well. Let's go npm here, and we are going to find a similar package for the style sheet as well. So let's go ahead and search for that as well. So this is known as CSS loader. Again, most of the loaders are actually called as dash loaders, and plugins, we don't call them anything. Come on, load this up. Okay, so this one is very interesting. First thing you're going to notice that the documentation is much more clearer now. It says module, and then we have rules, and rules is an array which has this object. So this one is actually a little bit better. But there is again a small caveat here. This says, hey, you're going to say that CSS loader is up here, but I'm also being dependent on the style loader as well. What both of them are doing up here, and why do we need both of them? The CSS loader, first and most important thing, you need to see this very clearly that these are all loaded up from the right. So the CSS loader is going to be loaded up first, and after that the style loader is going to be loaded up next. And if you're going to scroll a little bit more, you're going to see that they also say that you can also inject handlebar loaders and stuff. So again, first this guy is going to get loaded, then second this guy is going to get loaded, and finally the handlebars are going to get loaded in case you need that. So coming up onto that, why do we need both of them? You are going to technically need both of them. The CSS loader allows you to import all the CSS properties into your JavaScript file, but this style loader allows you to take those properties or CSS properties further and inject them into the style sheet of the index file. So both of them are important. But we know both of them now, so we're going to go ahead and just say, hey, we are going to need the CSS loader and we're going to need the style loader. So let's go back up here, clean the screen, and paste this up. So this one says, hey, I'm going to need CSS loaders and I'm going to need a style loader. I wish they could have just added this one more here. Let's go ahead and hit enter first. Okay, so both of them are loaded, but our configuration is not being done. So let's go ahead and move on to the configuration. I can just grab this small thing and I can just move back onto file. And after this rule or this set of rule, I can just inject this. So now I have configured that how I'm going to configure SVG, how I'm going to configure CSS. And in case you need any other extra file, now you have practiced two of them. I'm pretty sure you can go ahead and work on with the third one as well. They're pretty simple, but there's one more thing. You're going to notice that the first thing, which is test, is always remain same, but the second one, sometimes it says loader, sometimes it says use. So which one do you recommend? I personally recommend to say use because it brings more consistency, and most of the updated module are going to say use. Use can be just a single library to load up, or it can also be an array of multiple libraries that you can load up. So my recommendation is to go for use up here. Okay, what else we gotta do? So let's go back and talk a little bit more onto the things. One more common thing that you'll be doing since you are using Webpack is the babel. Now, with the babel, the thing is really simple. You want to write modern JavaScript with those arrow functions and everything, but still you want to make sure that your file actually or your application loads up nicely in the little bit older browser that doesn't support all these modern and advanced features that you're learning in JavaScript. So for that, babel is kind of a requirement. And how do you configure babel? It's a debate. It's a lot of debate coming up here. So why is that? Let me show you on that. So what we're going to do is we are going to load Babel as well. Again, easy way to find them up is babel-loader. So again, loaders have a loader prefix usually. Okay, this is the one we are looking up for, babel loader, and you're going to notice a big, gigantic, lengthy command just up here. It says npm install -d, of course, for dev dependencies, and it says a babel loader, babel core, babel preset env pack. Again, I recommend is don't install anything that you don't need. If you want to set up some environment variable, look for the loader that can set up all these environment variables for you. And there's a lot that you can do up here. So in this one, we are going to just load babel loader, and we're going to do a configuration a little bit by ourselves so that we can explore a little bit more onto the code part. So first, let's clean up the screen, and we are going to just say I need babel loader. So we're going to go ahead and say, hey, give me just a simple babel loader. Let's hit enter. Okay, so babel loader is up here. So next thing, we need to do a configuration for that. So let's go ahead and write our very first code up here. So we're going to say that, hey, I'm going to go ahead and first say test. In the test, you basically write your regex up here. So in case you are not much familiar with the regex, that's okay as well. All I'm going to say in this regex is that if you find any JS file, just make sure you are handling that through the babel loader. But not only that, I'm going to say that I don't want to find any JS. I want to find a group of JS. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. And again, to just finish it off, I'm going to put $. Again, probably some another day, we're going to talk more onto JavaScript, these regex, but not up here, just the basics one here. Okay, so that is up, and how we are going to use that? We are going to use that into loader. So we're going to say babel-loader. Okay, so you have written a little bit of the JavaScript, a little bit of Ajax regex actually, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so we have got three things being done. We are loading up SVGs, style sheets, and we are also able to write modern JavaScript, and it will be automatically compiled down into basic JavaScript. Okay, this is all done. Let's move a little bit more. The next challenge in front of us is really simple. We simply want to have an output file as well. So what we're going to do, I am pretty sure that you now have understood the concept of loader, so I can just minimize it. And you know that how the entry point is working, you know how the module and rules are working, and I'm pretty sure you can install more loaders as well. The next thing to worry about is how the output is going to work on. So let's go ahead and have an output. Output actually is an object. And what are the other things that are required in this one? The first thing is actually the path. So we have to mention the path. We are going to do that in a second. And come on, don't do this. Okay, and the next thing that is required is file name. Now file name is really simple. Whatever you want to call this one, usually you're going to find that people call this as bundle.js, but nobody's stopping you to call this as superman.js, so feel free to do that. Now in the path, you're going to notice that most of this bundlers actually import another core module, which is path. So we're going to simply say const path, and that is going to be required. You don't need to install it. This comes up directly as soon as you're using Node. And there we go, path. Okay, why we are using this? Do we really need it? No, you don't need it, but it's going to make your life a little bit easier. So what this path is going to do is we do something like this. We simply say path.resolve, and it takes two parameters. The first one is actually __ dir name. So get your current directory name. And then inside that, separated by comma, we're going to go into dist. This is a very common scenario that you're going to see. Is it required? No. You can just say that I need my final file to be in the same directory, so you don't just give any path name, or you just say /, and that's going to work fine. But this is a more common practice, hence I'm showing it to you. Okay, so this is all done. Now you know that how the final file is going to be created. Okay, moving on. Just think a little bit. You are creating 5 different files, and that file is bundled up into final bundle.js. Now somebody needs to inject that file into your index.html as well. Surely you can do it manually, but there are plugins for that. So loaders are something which do everything before the final compilation is being done, but these plugins are something which does things afterwards for you. And one of the very common plugin is the HTML injection plugin of the JavaScript. So let's install and see the documentation as well. And just like loaders, these plugins actually are prefixed by the plugins, so it's pretty common for them as well. So HTML Webpack plugin, yep, that's the one. So how do we, why is HZ? No, I don't need that. I need this one. Okay, so somehow I was not able to find that into npm.js, so I went on to Google, wrote the simply HTML Webpack plugin, click on that up here, and this is going to show us better documentation and stuff. So again, first thing is HTML, simply npm install HTML Webpack plugin, of course, in this dev mode. And then here are some basic usage up here. So let's go ahead and follow this. This is like too zoomed. This is more visible to me now. Okay, I like big fonts. What can I do? So copy this, let's move up here onto code file, and again, just like always, clean the screen, paste it up, and let's install it. Okay, installation done, and the configuration part is one of the most easiest one, and you're going to absolutely love it. So notice here it says that first you have to actually require it once you have installed it, and once you are done with that, all you have to say is that we are working with the plugin, so go ahead and grab this up. So again, nothing much to do. Let's go ahead and grab this first one up here, move up here, go to the very top. Of course, after the path, I'm going to import that. And there we go. Don't worry, if you're importing path first and all of that, it's going to be same. And then after the plugin, we just have to say that, hey, just do this. So go ahead and work on with that. So after the output, we're going to just have the plugin, and there we go. Okay, so this is one of the most easiest thing that you're going to have. What this one is going to do, this HTML Webpack plugin is going to say that, hey, I'm going to generate an index.html for you. And not only just that file, I'm going to also inject, I'm going to look up here, and I'm going to say what is the file name and the path where you are producing your final output. I'm going to take this bundle.js and will inject that into an index.html. How cool is that? So easy. Okay, let's go ahead and save this up. Okay, now moving on to one more thing which you are also going to configure with your Webpack is the dev servers. So this is a really, really common one. So let me show you that up as well. So let's come up here, and this one is going to be Webpack dev server. And there are a couple of issues as well that are running around. So I'm going to address that one as well. You can find them on Stack Overflow, but this is very common. Everybody faces them every day. Okay, so this is how you actually grab this. So what this is going to do, there is a dev server. We all are familiar with that. So we don't want to keep on running the file again and again. We don't want to stop it and run the server again. We want to have a facility which I can simply focus on writing the code. As soon as I save this, it recompiles and do all the operations again for me. Yes, that's exactly, this one is for you. So we're going to go ahead and grab this one up here. So let's go ahead and copy that and move up here, clean the screen, paste it up, and let's install. Okay, so now that is installed. And the good thing about that, we don't do any Webpack configuration for this dev server or this Webpack dev server. The configurations are done into package.json file. We're going to do that, but there is one last thing I want to mention, that if you're configuring your Webpack, you're going to see that there is one more option which is absolutely common. In fact, it is always there, which is known as mode. So there are two modes up here. The first one is actually production that you see quite commonly, or there is another which is development or dev mode. What is the difference between them? The development is much more forgiving, while the production is much more strict. If you want that all of your files are compressed and all the extra spacing and everything is being removed in the final version of your file, we prefer the production. It also minifies a whole lot of things as well. But what you're going to notice is nobody says development or production directly here. Everybody just uses this simple syntax in which we say that we're going to define an environment variable. We're going to call this one as node env, or maybe other different name. And then we're going to simply say that if it is defined as production, then go ahead and use production. Come on, production. Or else we are going to use the development. Again, there can be changes in this because some says that, hey, if it is development, use development, otherwise it's production. So you get the idea. It's just a simple if and else. Now, some people directly write production and development. I don't have any problem with that. It's just up to your use case. Okay, So this is the basic Webpack configuration that you do, and I highly recommend to check out more onto the Webpack documentation. They have a whole lot of things being defined for every single use case scenario that you are thinking of. There is something there, so you can actually go ahead and have a look on this after this video. Moving on, let's do the final configuration of our package.json as well. So in the package.json, you're going to notice that our dev dependencies are here, but here are a few scripts that you can run. So instead of installing the Webpack and doing the entire long path from the node modules, we can actually short that and make our life a little bit easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to simply say that I do have a start script. And how does that start script is going to work? It's going to call Webpack, and this will automatically look into the node module folder and will find Webpack for you, so don't need to define the entire path. And we're going to simply say, there's a little bit more I wanted to show you first. So if we go on to this Webpack, you're going to notice that they say you can use it by saying a node module just like this, or you can just simply say start dev or whatever the command you want to use. And they say Webpack dev serve. And this actually gives a little bit of issues, so you should be aware of that. So in the start script, we're going to simply say like this. This is going to give us a little bit of issues. We're going to fix that. And there is another one. We can say that build is going to give things into production. So what we're going to do is we're going to simply say just Webpack here. Okay, but there is one more thing we have to worry about, which is our environment variable. So we're going to just define them here, node env. And we are going to say that I am mentioning that this one is for, let's go for production. And make sure you put a space there as well. Okay, this one is going to give us an error in the code. This one is going to work absolutely fine. So let's go ahead and save this. Now comes up, all the configuration is done. Let's see the Webpack, that what it is expecting. The entry point is in the app index.js. So let's go ahead and do that. Create a folder. Let's call this one as app. And inside this app, I'm going to create a new file. Let's call this one as index.js. And in our index file, we're having simple my array. And this array is having a few cities up here. So I'm going to start with my favorite city where I live. And I'm going to go ahead and start with one more. And there we go. I think that should be enough for now. Okay. And after that, I'm going to go ahead and do a simple console log of this my array. There is nothing too much on this JavaScript file, just simple basic. Am I doing any typo? Nope. Okay. So what should happen now? When I run npm start, it's going to give us an error. So we're going to take care of that later on. But when I run npm run build, this is going to run my Webpack. This Webpack will go into Webpack configuration and we'll see, okay, so this is your entry point. So all of the code that you're writing somehow actually goes back into index.js. And if you use any of the SVG file, I'll handle that. If I use any CSS file, it's going to handle that. If you write any modern JavaScript, I'm going to handle that this way. And I'm going to throw up all of your files, finally bundling them together into bundle.js. And since you're using HTML Webpack plugin as well, I'll create an index.file as well and inject that bundle.js for you in that file. And you're also defining your production mode. So I'm going to minify your code or not minify your code based on your preferences. A lot we have done here. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this one. So first, what is the command that we want to run here? Look at up here. This one is npm run, and we want to use build first. So we're going to hit an enter. And now everything is being running up, and we have got some of the environment. Looks like I got some of the spelling issues. Let me quickly see that. I'm pretty sure most of you have already caught me while I was writing this. So this is actually file name. And in case you have got this one, it was pretty mentioned up here. So configuration output, read your errors. That's the only way to resolve this. So hopefully, let's resume what we were doing. So we were trying to just run a build command here, and the production is being built, and we can see that some things are being generated for us. So dist is the distribution folder, and we got this bundle.js, and it has just got this console log, and Jaipur, Delhi, Paris, and all of that is coming up. In the index.html, if I just go like this, we can see that our script is also being loaded in this index. So this is all something very similar to the JavaScript, but let's do a little bit more of this one up here. So apart from this, we are going to go ahead and unnecessarily do some module.exports of my array. I know this is not necessary, but okay, not module.export. Actually, we are going to go ahead and say export default my array. Okay, this was not necessary, but wanted to show you something up here so that you understand a little bit more of it. So we're going to run npm run build again, and this is going to generate all of these files. And now let's see into bundle.js. And now you can see that since module.export is a bit more of a modern syntax that needs to be converted down, so that is what it has done. And it's going to keep on doing that. Now comes up onto the error part, which I know is going to come up. So we have been running npm run build. Now let's run what happens with the continuous command that we have configured. So npm start. So npm run start, and we're going to hit enter. And this is giving a whole lot of people error, and that's why there's a lot of thread in the Stack Overflow as well. What they ask you to do now is, instead of going with the documentation of Webpack dev serve, just go for Webpack serve. And that should fix the error in most cases. But again, let me know if you are having another fix. So npm run start, and then it's keep on running the things, and it's going to keep on compiling. But the interesting thing is you are not going to see much into the bundle.js because it's keep things into the cache, and unless you put the things into build or production, it doesn't yield that output in the file. So it's going to keep on refreshing the things. You're going to see all the updated things, so nothing to be worried, and you don't have to keep on restarting this stuff. So there we go. That's basics of the Webpack, and I'm going to throw this entire file onto my GitHub repo as well, so that in case some of you wanted to check it out and play more along with that, you can check that up, and I'm going to link that in the description section. And that's pretty much it. I hope you have enjoyed this video. In case you have enjoyed it, do let me know on my Instagram or everything. In case you can also consider hitting the subscribe button as well, or check out my other some courses at Learn Code Online. Your support really helps a lot in building a lot of such tutorials. So thank you so much for keep watching them and keep enjoying them. I'm going to surely catch you up in the next video.